I would like to open this first at-home homecoming
by recognizing that McGill University is on land which long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous people whose presence have enriched this territory on which peoples of the world now gather.
En cette toute première édition des retrouvailles virtuelles, permettez-moi d'abord de souligner que l'Université McGill est située sur un territoire qui a longtemps été un lieu de rencontre et d'échange pour les peuples autochtones, notamment pour les nations Haudenosaunee et Anishinaabe. Nous saluons et remercions les divers peuples autochtones qui ont enrichi de leur présence ce territoire qui accueille aujourd'hui des gens de partout dans le monde.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today from near and far. Bonjour tout le monde, et merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui. My name is Luciano D'Iorio, and I am a proud graduate of the Faculty of Arts and the incoming president of the McGill Alumni Association. The McGill Alumni Association represents McGill's global community of more than 275,000 alumni in more than 180 countries. Our role is to support our alumni around the world and ensure that our graduates remain engaged and connected to our university. Staying engaged and connected is a great segue to introduce this event, a town hall with our principal, Professor Suzanne Fortier. It's my pleasure to be your host and moderator for this town hall today, which is part of McGill's very first at-home homecoming. As you know, in normal years, our homecoming events take place on our campuses with friends, family, and alumni. This year is different. We're naturally disappointed that we cannot come together in person where we can indulge in all things McGill and Montreal. But we're delighted that we can still come together using technology to connect with alumni around the world. Maybe even your friends and family are joining you for this event. Wherever you are, I'm so glad you are staying safe and staying connected to McGill. Let me take a moment to briefly outline the format of today's event. We'll start with some introductory remarks from our principal, and then I will follow up with some questions of some top-of-mind topics. After that, I'll wrap things up with a few closing words. So let me begin by introducing our principal. Professor Fortier has served as principal and Vice-Chancellor of McGill University since September 2013. Originaire de Saint-Timothée, Québec, la professeure Fortier a obtenu un baccalauréat en sciences en 1972 et un doctorat en cristallographie en 1976 de l'Université McGill. She was appointed an officer of the Order of Canada in 2018. She is also an officer of France's National Order of Merit, a fellow of the American Association of the Advancement of Science, and a specially elected fellow of the Royal Society of Canada. Professor Fortier currently serves as chair of the World Economic Forum's Global University Leaders Forum. In this role, she co-chaired a series of leadership dialogues regarding COVID-19 and its immediate and long-term impact on the higher education sector. I'm proud to welcome Professor Fortier both as a fellow member of the MAA and our principal.
Bonjour Luciano et bonjour à vous tous où que vous soyez dans le monde. It feels good, I must say, to know that there are people in our great McGill community who are coming together. Even though we're in the virtual mode, I think that the feeling is not virtual, it's real. And so thank you very much for participating in this town hall today. It's been a rough period for all of us, wherever we are, everywhere in the world. But I've had the privilege really, and I hope you have to be uplifted by the sense of community that we have at McGill. Also to see McGillians really being involved in some of the most important activities related to COVID. In public policy, of course, in health policy, but also in the research effort that's going on everywhere in the world so that we can better manage this crisis. Also great is to see the engagement of people in our community. It was impressive to see how fast our students were ready to provide help to the community, particularly in our long-term care homes. To see some people who really have a full plate being there at the front line. And I'll mention perhaps our two of our very famous McGillians, two recently graduate of the medical faculty, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who soon after winning the Super Bowl came back to Quebec and offered his help in the long-term care center. And also Joanie Rochette, gold medalist, Olympic medalist, who also offered her help. And I think for all of us, this is really something that is enormously inspiring. There were also a lot of people who worked very, very hard in this community to make sure that we could keep our university safe and that we could make sure that our students would be able to finish the academic year. And that has been fantastic. And finally, you know, the friendship and the support that we have received from people all over the world has really helped us. People were contributing to help students here who were in need of emergency funds, for example. And that kind of sense of community is really important, because what has allowed us to do all of this engagement and sense of community is really make progress on the big projects that we have here at McGill, whether it's the sustainability project and the reaffectation of the old Royal Victoria Hospital, or our project in reimagining our library, welcoming next September, in a year from now, the McCall McBain at McGill Scholars. We've been able to make progress on all of these projects. And I think that's very important, because as much as this situation right now might be difficult, we need to think about the future. And that's something that has been very much part of our energy here, is to prepare for that great future. We know it's there, and we know we'll be ready for it.
That's great. Well, thank you. Absolutely. I as a Montrealer, of course, I followed some of these stories, and to see Laurent Tardif and Joanie step up to the plate as McGillians,
yes,
and as proud Quebecers and proud McGillians, it was really great to see. So thank you for sharing that with us. I have a few questions
yes,
that we have been, obviously thinking about over this time. I certainly have time to spend on campus now. I'm in Montreal, so of course I get a chance to walk up to Mount Royal in the morning, and I usually use the campus, and so I see a bit of the buzz in terms of buildings and stuff. But tell us, what's life like at McGill today in the midst of this pandemic?
Yes, well, first of all, we started the new academic year, and we have the same number of students that we normally have. So that is good. I think our university enjoys a strong reputation, and we're very happy and privileged to have these great students join McGill, even in these times of pandemics. Of course, a lot of the activities have to be in the virtual mode, for safety reasons, health safety reasons. So we are really working very hard to provide a high quality education in these new modes of teaching. And that's something we've done. We also want to increase the opportunities for our students to have in-person activities on our campus. So we have prepared with teaching hubs and study hubs and workshops so that they can be here and enjoy the life on campus. The one thing I hope every day when I go to bed is that the next day will be beautiful. Because when we have beautiful days, and we've had plenty of them in this season here since September, I can see life on campus. The students come, they come to our campuses, they come to study, to meet friends, to do activities together, and of course enjoy the beautiful outdoor space that we have here at McGill. And that's for me, the best way to start the day is to see these young people on campus.
Well, certainly the grass is greener on Lower Campus
the grass is
today.
greener. That is for sure, yes.
Great. Well, how has this pandemic changed your view of universities? Are there lessons or best
Yes.
practices that can be learned?
Yeah. I don't think that it has changed my view, but it has reinforced my view that there's far more to being part of a university community, and particularly for our students, than going to classes. That is an important part of it, of course, but there's far more than that, and our students are telling us that very loudly. What's part of being in this community is, of course, making new friends, meeting new peoples, debating ideas, exchanging ideas, doing projects together, launching initiatives. All of these activities that are so much part of life on campus is very important. All these activities are more difficult to do in the virtual world. So our students are really hoping, and we are too, that we will be able, in a few months from now, we will be able to have more of these types of activities. Learning for our students is all of those activities. Well, they learn the classroom, but all of these interactions, some of them are not planned, and I think that is in some way the richness of it. All of these unplanned activities maybe, or encounters that make you discover new things, new knowledge that you didn't know about before. And having, for example, students who are in engineering, meeting students who are in music or in medical school, any of the different areas of our university is what is a really rich learning experience for our students. But we have learned important things also. I think the biggest, I think, learning lesson for all of us across the world is we are far more agile than we thought we were. And that's good news, you know. We really had to turn on a dime to change all of our teaching activities that were largely in person to online. And that was really a great exercise of agility, and we did it. And having done it now, I think we're more ready to embrace new ways of interacting with one another. We don't want it to be the single way of interacting, but it certainly will help us interact in our teaching and learning in more ways than we had in the past. And this is very important, particularly in opening, I think, these learning experiences to more people in the world. It's going to be increasing accessibility to a very large extent. Now it doesn't matter where you are, you can participate. And what we certainly have seen during COVID is that situations of people, even in our own country, in our own city, and of course across the world, can be very different. Some people may not have the opportunity or the privilege, for example, of doing study abroad.
Right.
It's simply not possible given their economic situation. But we can have virtual study abroad. We can bring them in a classroom where there are people from all over the world. And of course, another area where this agility and flexibility is so important is for people who are in the workforce. And for them, having the ability to study online is really very, very good, because they may not have the time in their schedule or the opportunity to come in person. So this is a really great opportunity for these people. So we've learned great lessons, and I think I've participated in the dialogues with people from universities all over the world, and we are right now looking at ways of collaborating far more than we ever had, and creating these classrooms, these learning opportunities that are global.
But, you know, I'm fascinated to hear that, because I think that, you know, certainly when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of institutions, and, you know, especially at the secondary and primary level, had a lot of trouble rolling out the virtual setting. So to hear that, you know, McGill had a quick pivot,
Yes.
it sounds like, you know, things were, I'm sure there was some things to tweak, but it sounds like things are
Yes.
sort of normal, if we can call it that.
Yes, well, I have to do some acknowledgement here because we have really great people in helping us in this. Our Emergency Operations Center had been meeting at least a month before the pandemic hit Montreal. I mean, when you saw the pandemic moving from Asia to Europe, you knew it was coming your way, and they didn't wait for it to arrive in Montreal. They started doing their work, and of course, in the Provost's office, great people who focus on the program and focus on the teaching, and were helping us to do that. So we are really well supported by these talent in our university.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, and you know, it makes me wonder about your role now with the World Economic Forum. Maybe we can touch on that, because certainly you're right in there with other universities, I believe. And so tell us a little bit about that and the COVID-19.
Yes, so we started the discussion related to COVID-19 because many of us were taken by surprise by this crisis. And the first time we met for the dialogue specifically on COVID was very much about, what are we doing now? Can people share some good practices, because we're all facing this crisis? And we were really very much helped by our colleagues who are in Asia, because they had seen the crisis before us. And so they gave us very good advice. And the one I will always remember is they tell us, this is going to be a long journey.
Attache ta tuque.
Yeah, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Be prepared. But quickly we turned to, okay, now we know this is happening. What do we do? How do we take advantage of what we're learning now for the future? How do we think about our role, and how can we prepare for the future? And as you may know, the World Economic Forum right now is focusing on the Great Reset. So we've all stopped many activities. We will have a big reset. How are we going to do the reset? Are we going to go back exactly to the way we were before? Or are we going to think about how to make the world better? For us universities, I think it's an important question. Can we use that reset to do better? And the area where we all agree we can do a lot better is on accessibility. It is providing high quality education to people who do not have the opportunity to access that. There are a lot of young people in those refugee camps, for example. They cannot come to our universities. But how can we make our education accessible to them? That's just one example, but I think it's a very important one. And of course also on sharing the knowledge, and particularly the research effort, to deal with some of the major problem issues in the world. Many people say COVID is our dress rehearsal for climate change.
Okay.
The climate change issue will be as dramatic and as impactful as COVID. This is our chance to prepare for it.
We're at less than 100 days away from 2021, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I know some people say they
Yeah.
feel like it's been longer or not soon enough.
Yes.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic about 2021?
I would classify myself in the group of people who are optimistic scientists. What I mean by that is, naturally I'm optimistic because I believe in human ability to provide advancement in knowledge and so on to help us solve problems. So I think if people have attended the BT lecture yesterday and heard Professor Pinker, it is in that sense that I'm an optimistic scientist. I believe that we have the talent, the ingenuity, and the generosity in the human race to make the world better. So that would be it. And so I am an optimistic. So in the near term, so right now, I would say looking at all the effort across the world in research to deal with this issue, I think we will have better solutions in the not so distant future. So that's in the immediate term. I'm optimistic about that. At a longer term, I'm optimistic about us having learned from this crisis, us, the whole human race, and having learned important lessons about collaborating with one another. We're all in the same boat, so we need to work together, but also about having learned important lessons in humility, in resilience, and in humanity. And looking at us as a global community with a different perspective.
We talked about science. How can you bring scientific knowledge to decisions on important issues facing the world? I think you kind of touched on this.
Yes, yes. Well, I think, first of all, I think that it is important to bring science, knowledge, data, evidence to decision making. But it is important for that knowledge to be accessible to people. And I think for us it starts maybe with what I've talked about already in sharing the information, in sharing the knowledge. I'll give you an example here at McGill, our Tannenbaum Open Science Institute. The idea beyond that institute is that we are facing another crisis, which is a crisis of keeping ourselves healthy, keeping our brain healthy. Many, many more people, because of aging now, because we live longer life, are facing issues of mental illness, neurodegenerative disease, and so on, Alzheimer. And it is a huge problem. It's affecting everybody's life. We can solve this problem if we share better what we know. And in the case of the Tannenbaum Open Science Institute, they're sharing everything. They're sharing the data, they're sharing the biobank sample, they're sharing even data from experiment that didn't prove the hypothesis, so that people don't waste their time repeating what has already been shown not to work. That is so important. So that's one thing among the researchers, the scientists. We need to be far more open about our science and far more in a sharing model. But it's important also to share with the public and everyone, the citizens in the world. You know, people sometimes say, well, why doesn't the government make this decision? Often the government doesn't make the decision because the public is not supporting them. The public will support them if they have the knowledge. And so, again, we need to be making the knowledge far more accessible and enter in conversation with people. I don't know if you have watched any of the webinars that our University Advancement did during this whole period of pandemics. People were eager to learn from those who know what was going on, and so they attended. That's a very good way of sharing, and these people were doing it in language that everybody else could understand, so that's very important. And of course, this is not new at McGill. The Office of Science and Society has been doing that for years.
And just putting things in layman terms.
Yeah, and also if you participate in the Trottier annual Trottier Symposium, when I go there every year, and this year it will be virtual, but the place is packed. People want to know. And so I think that is very, very important also to share the knowledge and to make it accessible to people, but also to hear the contribution from other people, how they see these issues and what we need to do. So
I can say from our perspective at the alumni, we certainly have gotten a lot of positive feedback over these classes. And as you said, very layman terms, and you know, just basically getting McGill out in the community and making it accessible. So it's great to hear that. It's great to hear your commitment to that. So.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So again, in the pandemic, especially, we were talking about that before, in the lockdown, and things were changing for everybody, and especially here in Quebec, where we had a Dr. Harura, who was our public health director, who encouraged people to spend their time with either making tartelettes or dancing. Or I mean, he became an internet sensation. But I guess that begs the question: how did the pandemic affect your day-to-day work?
Yes.
And what do you do in your spare time for fun?
Okay.
Two questions, I guess, really.
Well, you know, like everybody else, I'm spending a lot more time in front of a computer screen, almost all day. I have far more meetings that I would have normally. And that's simply because, well, those half hour that I needed to go from one building here to another, or maybe longer hours to travel to another destination, we can use them now. And so I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. This is my day, so it's really affected that. It's a very fast pace, I would say. A typical day, I'll give you an example here. I might start the day in Quebec City. And then from there, I'll go to Geneva for a World Economic Forum meeting, come back maybe to New York, because we have very active alumni in New York, maybe make a stop in Vancouver, because we have a meeting of all of the university presidents with a stop in Ottawa. I'll get back to Montreal, and I'll go to the MAC campus and our new Outaouais campus. This is all in one day. This is not an atypical day. Right. Of course, we're also extending the day, because I can start at 7 in Geneva. Right. It's the afternoon, so it's fine. And then same thing in the evening. So the days are longer. There are many, many more meetings.
But no jet lag.
No jet lag. It's hard, though, to do something that Dr. Arruda, and in fact, the Premier has told us to do. They've said, do go out and take a walk. It's good for your health, so you can't be just sitting in front of your computer. So that's a fun part, or maybe a health part for me, is I need to take a walk. Sometimes it's difficult still to fit one in, but after touring around where I live and so on, finally I landed my very favorite walk. And it's fun. I don't know, I would call it fun, but it certainly was uplifting. And that is, I walked to the McGill campus. I walked through the Roddick Gate. I looked around. It was the beautiful green grass and so on. That has become my favorite walk. And of course, now it's my walk to work, of course, as it was before. But even when I couldn't come to work in my office, that was my walk.
And so in a virtual setting, then, when you're not in Geneva virtually, or in New York City, or on campus, what would you recommend as any good books or movies or music to our alumni?
Okay, well, I'll tell you the book I've recommended to all my friends. You've read it, reread it, is La Peste de Camus, The Plague of Camus. It is an unbelievable book. And contrary to what people might think, they might say, well, that's going to be depressing. Not at all. Because through talking about that event in Algeria, Camus talks about all the important aspects of our lives, friendship, love, death, monotony, all of that. So it's an incredible book. It's a beautiful book, and I've told everybody, you must reread La Peste. If you haven't read it, read it, but if you've read it, reread it. In the movie, I had problem finding movies that really were catching my attention, but the one I really enjoyed is Antigone. It's a new Canadian movie, and it's a very good movie. I recommend that. And in music, well, I listen to the radio. That's one thing I do. Many people don't anymore, but there's a music critic in Montreal, Christophe Hus, and he is extremely good. And he recommended a particular album. It's called Les Feuilles Nocturnes, and it's the Koryolov series of recording. I believe it's number 12. Let me see, I wrote it down because I want to make sure people have the right thing. It's 22. The Koryolov series, volume 22, it's all Chopin. It is absolutely beautiful. And Christophe Hus, who's a very, very tough critique, at least he's known to be, said, this recording is a miracle. So when I heard him say that, I right away went to get this recording, and it is a miracle. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
I knew I would have homework after leaving the principal's office for sure, so I've got some homework.
So now
to do.
you have a book. Have you read La Peste?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
It is an incredible book. Very, very good.
So I've got three to-do items on my agenda. Thank you. And I guess as we're wrapping up here, any messages or final words for our alumni?
For our alumni, I want to thank all of our alumni for extending their friendship and their support to one another. When the pandemic started, I could see how people were reaching out to our alumni in Asia, particularly in mainland China and in Hong Kong. And then that kind of friendship and connection spread. That's a good virus to spread. Friendship virus is a good one to spread. And people were connecting with one another. And I think keeping each other uplifted, but also making sure that people were fine. As I mentioned, reaching out to us to help the students who are currently on campus. We could see, I think for us in this period, the true McGill spirit. A spirit of generosity, a spirit of resilience, a spirit of friendship, and it was very inspiring to see that. So I want to thank our alumni for reaching out to us, but reaching out to one another during this difficult period, because I think at the end, and being an optimistic scientist, but nevertheless optimistic, I think that when we come out of this, we will come back to a better place, because what we have learned also is the importance of our humanity and of being connected to one another. And I think for me, there's no better lesson for us at McGill. As we start our third century, as you know, we're celebrating our bicentennial in 2021, so we're starting a third century of the life of our university. And I think this is a great lesson to make even stronger that McGill spirit. And I must say, I can't wait for next year homecoming. I'm already looking forward to next year homecoming, because we will be together, and that spirit will uplift all of us during our homecoming next year. La fin de semaine de retrouvailles, la semaine prochaine, je vous assure, l'année prochaine. Oui. Ça va être quelque chose, comme on dit au Québec. Ça va vraiment être un événement qui va nous rassembler tous. Cette grande communauté McGilloise va être ici ensemble. So I can't wait to see you all, and but it's really, I'm thankful that you are joining us in this virtual mode this year. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, and thank you, Principal Fortier. Really appreciate your informative and insight really into the ins and outs of life at the university during a global pandemic and during this time, and what is typically a time where we are celebrating in person and sharing our friendship and our love for the university. So thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you having this, taking time out of your schedules for this chat. I do want to say that in terms of, I want to thank on behalf of all McGill alumni, I would like to express my thanks and appreciation for your work and your team's work, your leadership team's work. You do such a great job and certainly during this challenging and extremely challenging year. So really appreciate that. And thanks to all of you at home, near and far, who are joining us virtually today. Again, I'll repeat it. I know you wanted to be here in person. We would have loved to have you here in person. But as Professor Fortier has said, our principal is waiting for us for next year, and next year's homecoming is going to be out of this world. On that, I do want to remind those of you who have not signed up yet for the Leacock lecture. We have an irrepressible Joe Schwartz, who's going to be hosting the Leacock lecture, and he's going to talk sense, nonsense, and science.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a fitting topic for a very our first virtual Leacock luncheon. So I guess you'll have to prepare your own sandwich, but can watch virtually at home and enjoy all of the activities of at-home homecoming. So I invite those of you at home to visit us at mcgill.ca/homecoming and check out the schedule of events. And of course, you're invited to join us, as we said, in person in Montreal for homecoming next year as we celebrate the 200th anniversary of McGill University, a really great milestone, and proud to be part of that. So, merci à tous de vous joindre à nous pour cet événement. And thank you again, and merci to all of you for joining us. Have a great day.